Aloha guys, JRTV here. To delve into the world of mental illness. What are the variations of it? How can we improve it? What about criminal insanity? And what if, for example, myself, I were afflicted with it as I believe I was in the past, and then in turn, what if I was experienced some accident and had mental or physical limitations? My thoughts on that, and on the concept of aborting a fetus if it's not up to par with all its potential and capabilities as a human creature. So starting off with myself, so a lot of this, it's a controversial subject because it involves decisions of life and death and opinions, really opinions. It's not really a lot of it is subjective in terms of what a person can do in society, or how much help they should receive from the government, or how much they should be assisted. Like if I'm correct, in Japan, there's it's frowned upon to have a child if the child is disabled. And I'm going to start there. I'm going to start with, well, why would that be? Is it just because people hate their own children if they abort them? There's this concept that in which it's described as humane to put a cat or a dog, a pet down if they're suffering from limited mental or physical mobility. So my curiosity would be to ask, is it humane to do that to people? For me, and that's going to be what I'm going to stress in this video, what would I want for me? Because any other opinions may be politically incorrect to be saying, you should have an abortion, or what you should or shouldn't do regarding this issue. Maybe the one thing I can talk on is the criminal insanity, which for me, criminal insanity should be. See, I believe in reincarnation, so for me the rules are different. People can. It's better if they are humanely killed, so they're not a burden financially on the system, and instead those finances and that energy can be geared towards the next generation and making it so that they have more choices to avoid criminality, and then the person's future incarnation that will of course be. Let's check out the city here. Person's future incarnation will be happy and free of one person less that was a bad person. And when I say bad, I'm talking about irretrievably bad, irretrievably insane. And so what I'm saying, starting off, is that I would want to be humanely killed if I was under some type of mental limitation or physical limitation such that I couldn't enjoy my life, I couldn't even function, and I needed somebody else to care for me. Even if I had the money to pay somebody to care for me, I wouldn't want to do that unless I could at minimum enjoy some of my life, like still be able to write or to orate, kind of like Stephen King. I have these ideas, I believe, like similar to him, or Stephen Hawking, the scientist. I have all these ideas that to me are transcendental to the physical. My concepts or my truths are more meaningful to me than anything that could happen in this life or any life, because it is me, it is my soul. So when you're operating from this frame of mind, I think the ideas of life and death are no longer daunting, because you're in such a saturated and wealth of truth that you really feel that you are all that is, the universe. And so you're able to transcend this individual specific body and enter into a realm where you're able to let go and willing to reincarnate, and also willing to, for example, not have children if you're physically incapable, or you find yourself, you don't prefer your genetics, if they're not as attractive to you, your body or your spouses, if they're not so attractive in traits, then what you can do is you can invest in other couples. And so as far as abortions, yes, if and this is all getting personal, but I'm just giving you an example. Not trying to force my opinions on. I'm just trying to encourage you to know these decisions before you get married. My wife, will want to abort a fetus if it's overly malformed, mentally or physically. That's my personal preference, and I think it's greedy. I should only speak for myself, because that way I'm not being politically incorrect. So if I was to say, oh, it's greedy for somebody to support their impaired child, then that would be politically incorrect. But what I'm going to say instead is, I wouldn't support a child if it was impaired, and here's the reason why I think it's greedy, is because they couldn't enjoy their life. And I'd rather that soul go into a future body that could enjoy its life, in a future incarnation, instead of that particular body. And did I meet every point there? I may have. The point being, my concern being, okay, what is the bigger picture? Mental illness. Like, when I was younger, okay, I believe that when there's mixed gender environment and there becomes this competitive element, this sexual tension, and it creates unhealthy mental development, where you're just focusing on that instead of really trying to say, who am I? What do I want to learn? Who do I want to be? You're just thinking, oh, that person likes that person, or I hope this person likes me, or I want to, that whole energy of wanting to be attractive for somebody else is really a distraction to actual self-development and mental progress. And the idea of mental impairment, I believe, is also a mental illness. When somebody is under the influence of alcohol and different, they're impaired. They are in a way less conscious and therefore mentally ill. And if they keep doing it, guess what happens? They end up ruining their body and their mind, and they like what's the point of all these stimulants like coffee, drugs, alcohol? What it does is what does it do? What does it do? These stimulants, they make it so it's like, what are you doing? What are you trying to avoid? What is that an ideal life? So really, it's about ideal life. Like, for example, the idea that I would rather be intimate with nobody than be with someone who's a non-dreammate. That's optimal life. And the idea of living forever, I think it's possible, but you wouldn't want to live a less than perfect life. Like, if you're always working hard, that's why it's bad to take on a family and responsibility too early, because it results in what? It results in your being unable to develop yourself as an individual, and puts a lot of pressure on you, and it results in an unenjoyable life such that you are intent on retiring and then even dying because you don't like the life. And it's the same active desperation of, oh, you're feeling lonely and neglecting yourself and your dreams and your masturbation, and therefore those lower chakras, you want somebody else to satisfy them. You're wishing for somebody else, and then you're willing to say, oh, I just want to have some type of intimacy, and then you go for less than an ideal life. You go for less than the optimal, perfect situation. So in other words, you neglect the concept of marriage and you don't believe in it because you think that, oh, my life's over, I can't, or I'm never going to achieve that in my life. And so what you're doing is you're in defiance. You're negating and denying the potential that true love and a true dream mate is even a possibility. So all that combined, in combination with other things like unhealthy lifestyles and too much Wi-Fi, and they do sell protective clothing. You can go to lambsclothing.com or whatever it is. Different manufacturers, they're making clothing to protect the vital organs, the head, from all these waves, and of course cell phones. All this stuff contributes to quote unquote mental dis-ease, and even if it's not obvious, even if a person seems like they're doing well, if you're drinking alcohol and all that, it's a blatant indication that something's wrong. You don't like life, because in a nice life you don't need all that stuff. You're in joy. And so I have discovered this idea that I need to improve the world first before enjoying some of the luxuries of life, specifically physical intimacy with a spouse and a family, and socializing, all these things that sometimes, whether it be a monk or certain people, will refrain from. Maybe certain geniuses or certain people who contribute to humanity with concepts like these people. Steve Jobs, all these people, they work a lot, and on the surface it may look like they're workaholics, or they're just like into work. What it is they're trying to work fast to develop technology and ideology to make the world a better place, because me myself, I can't justify or substantiate existing in a world where there's all this suffering and people on the side of the street going on. And that's another thing. I think some of them should be, especially if they're mentally ill, they should be humanely put down. If I'm telling you, if that's who I was, I would say, put him down, put me down, and so that way I can reincarnate. I am not fucking attached to this body. I can go into a new, fresh body. So that's just the level I'm operating at. And some people, that's disturbing to them, because they just think that, let's, just kind of wait it out and then wait until heaven, and that heaven's gonna be great. Heaven is a fucking bad and boring place, okay? Heaven is an ideological fantasy in which people would hope for a world in which they don't have to have any challenges, experience any difficulty, because guess what? You need that darkness in order to shine your light. You need to, you need that challenge in order to have a sense of accomplishment and really experience a living in life. There is no living in life without difficulty. So the concept of heaven and living in a perfect heaven is something for it's something for people who, it's not about being afraid. it's just for people who don't really. It's like I don't know how to say it. It just like are unwilling to examine it. You know, this has been a lot. I can say I've talked about mental illness. About maybe did I touch on it? When I was younger, I had resentfulness towards authority, and therefore I took it out by being disrespectful to people, and I've transcended that. And also, you know, they say there are certain childhood issues that can affect. You know, you can get over that. The most important thing is transcendence from victim to responsible person, from victim to victorious over the situation, where you're fucking putting that on your shoulders and you're fucking squatting that motherfucker, bench pressing that. All right, you're taking that problem and you are owning it. It's your problem. You're gonna create some resolve, and it's going to influence everyone else so that they don't have to deal with that negativity in their life. And so the fact of the matter is, guys, is that's where we're going in society. We're going to a great place that involves people saving the world, many people, not just one hero like some Christian concepts would suggest. You know, not some type of, where Buddhists would suggest that you got to escape and then transcend the cycle of life and death. No, I fucking like life and death. I like experiencing existences and different reincarnations. It's me. It's fucking me. I'm the fucking Alpha and Omega. And that may sound egocentric at first, but if after examined, it's who we are. And you can repeat that in front of a mirror. You can say, I am all that is. I am all that is. Try repeating that 100 times. Like, program your mind, program your subconscious mind to really resonate with that. And then you might be able to feel better about, the flaws of society and existence in the third dimension. But in any case, guys, like I said, I myself had some mental illness, social awkwardness. Part of it was I didn't want to fit it into the. In Hawaii, there's kind of a local culture of that's popular. It's kind of a bit of a drug culture, a bit of a anti-intellectual culture, and I was a class clown. I had fun, but it's just that I didn't. I mean, really, what it is it's a transcendence of all these subcultures and just taking the strong points of them. Like, for example, there's the culture of the jock, quote unquote, who's athletic but maybe smokes marijuana, pursues romance instead of higher education. Then there's the more geeky person who doesn't making their physical health a priority, but they do have their intellectual pursuits. Then there's variations of people with different hobbies. I try to create a combination of that, a fusion of that, a greater person, a greater person than all these stereotypes. These are my thoughts. So let's transcend. And on a last note, I don't like to associate with people who have mental or physical illnesses. I think that hard work, and this is actually a quote from another philosopher, that hard work is the solution for certain mental illnesses, and I believe it is. It allows you to process things, take time to examine things, and. But I will say that I don't make time for people with mental limitations. I may be nice to them briefly. I may on occasion help them. But I don't promote that. Like, I wouldn't want to be them, and I would rather they just let their body go and go into a next incarnation. And I think that's the danger in society that we have to face. We have to face it. Are we just going to give people, $1,000 for crazy pay for the rest of their lives. And more so I'm talking about mental illness, because physical illness, it's more of a choice of the person. But even then, it's one thing if society can afford to, house people with physical limitations and that, but it's a whole other thing if we can't afford to, and the children are suffering, and I don't want to prioritize prisoners or people who have health problems or the elderly. I want to always prioritize the young, because they're the ones who haven't lived their life, and they are more deserving of a chance than anyone. And that's my opinion. I know these are strong opinions, and perhaps you've heard all this. Perhaps you don't agree with half of it. Maybe you don't agree with any of it. But if you don't, just leave a comment. You've watched this far. I appreciate it. I want to say aloha. Take care, and just just know what you want, who you are. And final note: just make a will. This is an idea. Make a will that reminds people that if you were to be incapacitated or mentally ill, where you didn't even recognize yourself, your brain was messed up, your body was so messed up that you couldn't even move, just say, I want to let go. I want, and where do you leave this will, quote unquote? You could leave it on your Facebook account or somewhere where it could be accessible. Leave it with loved ones, whatever. It's some hard decisions. People have their attachments, but ultimately, my conclusion is I really do feel it's greedy to hold on to people kind of like pets who cannot live lives, cannot connect with a dream mate, cannot live normal lives. I don't think it's fair to help them to live, because it's not really a life. So those are my perspectives. Aloha.